Pablo Emilio Escobar, among the most successful and ruthless drug lords ever, born in 1949 in Rio Negro, Colombia, rose from middle class to become the world's seventh wealthiest man by 1989. At his peak, Escobar trafficked tons of drugs globally, commanded political assassinations, murders, and linked to Colombia's government. Let's say that Mr. Escobar was very good at his job. But we're not here to talk about how he amassed his ill-gotten wealth of $30 billion. Instead, we'll explore the incredible mansions he spent his blood money on. Because if there is one thing Escobar was an expert at, it was spending. One of these mansions was the amazing estate known as La Manuela. It is estimated that Pablo Escobar transported 15 tons of cocaine to the United States every day and earned around $810 per second. As you might expect, I had a lot of money on hand and wasn't thinking about depositing it in a bank. Escobar used to hide his money in all kinds of places, including warehouses, fields, and some of the huge properties he owned. One of these homes was the luxurious estate known as La Manuela, which if you asked him, he would say was acquired completely legitimately. What type of home was La Manuela? It was Escobar's own refuge when he wanted a safe place, near the water to rest and recover from the daily grind of running a drug empire. But, unlike anyone else who simply took a vacation, Escobar decided to own his vacation spot. So this luxurious 20-acre estate in the resort town of Guatapé was his. It was right on the banks of the Peñon Reservoir, and he named her after his daughter, Manuela Escobar. Pablo Escobar invested a lot of money in this place. He wasn't going to name any ordinary place after his prized gem. This place was equipped with a huge swimming pool, tennis courts, and horse stables. Escobar loved buying all types of vehicles, on land, sea, and air. It was noted that he bought 15 private jets and 6 helicopters. So, of course, the Manuela would have a helicopter landing pad big enough to play soccer and a dock for seaplanes. When you're a drug trafficker as powerful as Escobar was, virtually no place is safe. Even La Manuela wasn't exactly a refuge. He built watchtowers on the property to make sure no one entered without his permission. However, just 8 months before his death, he fell victim to an enemy attack. 200 kg of TNT was placed in one of the bathrooms and detonated, destroying a considerable part of the building. After that, the Manuela was abandoned and slowly reclaimed by nature. It is currently in a state of deterioration and covered with vegetation. On the other hand, people often play baseball in its ruins, so it is not a total loss, where Escobar hid some of his immense wealth. After his death, people would visit the estate and dismantle it for abandoned loot. According to Escobar's brother, around 10 or 2, $1 billion were lost annually due to the strange places where they hid their money. They simply assumed it had been eaten by rats or destroyed by the elements. In some cases, it was simply lost. Pablo Escobar's extravagant life and impressive properties are a reflection of his excessive power and wealth. But they don't stop there, as there are more mansions and properties to explore in this fascinating story. Stay tuned to discover more about the infamous drug lord's legacy. Pablo Escobar, the powerful Colombian drug trafficker, did not stop at just one mansion. After exploring La Manuela, it is time to delve into another of the impressive homes that were part of his vast empire of illicit wealth. Welcome to Hacienda Nápoles, a property that expressed the most playful and happy side of Pablo Escobar, as his wife remembers him. This mansion was built in Puerto Triunfo, Colombia, and occupied an astonishing 77 square miles of land. That's even bigger than Disneyland Paris. And all that, just so that he and his family could live. But that was not all. Hacienda Nápoles was packed with attractions to give it a theme park atmosphere. The property included a Spanish colonial-style house, a sculpture park, and a zoo with a variety of exotic animals. There was also a bull ring and a car racing track, which ensured that his family was safe and entertained within this heavily guarded estate. Remember, I mentioned Escobar's love of vehicles. Hacienda Nápoles was large enough to have a private airport. After all, he needed a place to store his private jets and his massive collection of luxury and vintage cars. After Pablo Escobar's death in 1993, many of the original buildings on the property were demolished or repurposed for other purposes. Today, it has been converted into a family-friendly theme park. built on the legacy of a not exactly family-friendly man. The story of Hacienda Nápoles is a testament to Escobar's astonishing wealth, and how, despite his best efforts to spend it all, he was never able to completely exhaust it. It was a place where fun and luxury met. But not all of Escobar's properties were in Colombia, and for good reason, not everyone in Colombia was exactly a fan. One of these homes, far from home, was the Casa Grande, which he built on the tiny Caribbean island of Isla Grande. On an island with a population of just over 1,000 inhabitants is one of Pablo Escobar's largest properties, and it was only accessible by a special boat from Cartagena. This was not a home for the prying eyes of the public. At its height of splendor, the grand house was so large that it had over 300 exquisitely furnished rooms, with solid gold shower heads in each bathroom. This home is a testament to how much money Escobar really had, and how, despite his best efforts to spend it, he was never able to completely use it up. When he built this secret party house, Escobar commissioned a gigantic complex that featured a mansion with sparkling white walls, a massive pool, a helicopter landing pad, and a dock. Getting to this mansion required hours of walking through the Caribbean forest just to catch a glimpse of the big house before being chased away by an armed guard. After Escobar's death, the mansion on Isla Grande became government property and gradually fell into disrepair. The sprawling complex that once hosted elaborate meetings between some of the most powerful men in the world of Lampa has been reclaimed by nature. The big house didn't get the treatment that some of Escobar's other properties got. It remained abandoned and forgotten, a deteriorating shell of what it once was. You can't even find it on Google Maps. The island, which once housed the world's most powerful and dangerous drug trafficker, is now a place for religious pilgrimages. It's a much more uplifting place than Escobar's days, and even has a memorial for the victims of Pablo Escobar's cartel. Pablo Escobar owned many properties in his life. Some have been abandoned, others reclaimed for nature, and others have been transformed into something positive, used to remember the victims of Escobar's cruel reign in Colombia. What do you think of Escobar's numerous mansions? Were they a little excessive even for a drug dealer? Stay tuned to discover more about Escobar's properties and their impact on Colombian history. Pablo Escobar, the infamous drug trafficker, took his opulence and extravagance to places that defied the imagination. After exploring Hacienda Nápoles and the Casa Grande, we will delve into another of its amazing treasures. Welcome to the Monaco Building. Although less flashy than some of his other properties, this mansion in Medellin, Colombia, held a special place in Escobar's life for several years. The Monaco Building was a 6-story gray building with beautiful decoration, and at its top was Escobar's special place, a luxurious penthouse. Escobar occupied the Monaco Building for several years, until 1988, when it was bombed by a rival cartel, forcing the kingpin to vacate it. And so it remained abandoned for decades, even after Escobar's death. After Escobar's death, it became a tourist spot, where people came to see where the famous drug trafficker lived. In 2018, it was demolished by city officials in an attempt to leave behind the painful history the building represented, and has since become a memorial for the victims of Pablo Escobar. The Monaco Building is an example of how Pablo Escobar's story continues to live on in Colombia and how his legacy continues to evolve. But the history of Escobar properties would not be complete without mentioning the Hotel Escobar. As the most powerful drug trafficker in Colombia, Escobar lived a life that made him avoid rival cartels and the police at the same time. With the trajectory his life was taking, he was at a crossroads. Either he would die at the hands of a rival cartel, or he would end up in prison for the rest of his days. But being the powerful man that he was, he somehow found a way to avoid being extradited from the United States while protecting himself from those who wanted his head. Pablo's mentality was always from the beginning that he would rather die riddled with bullets than be extradited to the United States. Using his immense wealth and influence, he managed to convince or coerce local authorities to allow him to build his own prison. But we're not talking about a typical government-approved prison. We are talking about the Cathedral, also known as Hotel Escobar. This prison was not designed to keep Paul inside, but rather to keep his enemies outside. It had optimal defense capabilities, was built on a foggy mountain to prevent attacks from the air, and was guarded by men specifically selected by Pablo. If you could find the home, you definitely wouldn't get in alive. The cathedral got the nickname Hotel Escobar because the place was nothing more than a 5-star hotel built so Escobar could play prison. The place was equipped with every modern convenience you can imagine. A casino where Escobar could play with the men he had hired to guard him, a gambling house for his daughter Manuela, a spa, and even a soccer field. Escobar didn't let pretending to be in that prison keep him from the outside world. He often received guests and organized parties in the cathedral. The place was full of luxuriously furnished rooms, and he wasn't going to let them go to waste. There were even casino games. It is also said that Frank Sinatra once came up to play for him. But that was not all. The cathedral was also equipped with state-of-the-art communication devices that would allow him to manage his drug empire from a distance. It almost seemed like he couldn't get rid of Pablo Escobar. It was destined to terrorize Colombia for decades. Of course, we now know that's not the way the story ends. After Escobar's death, the cathedral became an abandoned place, a shell of what it used to be.
For several years, the original structures were dismantled by people searching for Escobar's abandoned treasures.
Until in 2007, a group of Benedictine monks arrived at the site and transformed it. Today, it is used as a religious pilgrimage site and is much more uplifting than in Escobar's days. It even has a memorial to the victims of Pablo Escobar's prison. Pablo Escobar owned many properties in his life. Some have been abandoned, others reclaimed by nature, and others have been turned into something positive. Used to remember the victims of his ruthless reign in Colombia. What do you think of Pablo Escobar's many mansions? Were they excessive even for a drug dealer? We are eager to hear your opinion in the comments.